Welcome back to the 10-second runoff powered by Culture Media with your host, Joe Mitchell, producer Magic Mikey Shiaza, and there he is, Brogan Bourgeois.
What's up, gentlemen?
We're in there. Oh, man, week 12 of college football happening this weekend. Already started. We had games Tuesday, Wednesday. Today is Wednesday. We got more games tomorrow, then moving into the weekend. Unfortunately, some of these coaches aren't going to get to the weekend. Zach Arnett already fired from Mississippi State this weekend. What are your thoughts on that?
It's just, I don't get the timing of all these firings, honestly. It's a little rough to kind of just cut it off right when it is. Now, speaking on him specifically, I did hear something earlier this week that Jeff Lebby is on a short list for that one. He's the Oklahoma OC, and he was a former Kiffin assistant, so he does have some pretty good experience under some other coaches before he could potentially have this job. But I heard that, and I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, I find this whole deal just really unfortunate for Mississippi State. Obviously, nobody could have predicted what was going to happen with Mike Leach. Horrible situation. But going and get Zach Arnett, only letting him coach 10 games and then moving on. Like, to me, what they did, right, is all they did was created a scenario where Zach Arnett didn't have a full year to get a recruiting class. And then they gave him through week 11 to try and build a recruiting class and fired him. So you're now going on 2 seasons with no true recruiting class. Like, this sets your program back a long way.
Yeah. Not a good spot to be in. No. Especially in the SEC, where you can't have this kind of limbo period where you'll get stepped on week in, week out.
Yeah, it sucks if you're a Mississippi State fan. I'm not sure where they go from here. Obviously, I think Lebby wouldn't be a bad hire. But they're years away from competing at this point.
100%.
Another piece of news that came out, Quinn Ewers says there's a 90% chance of him returning to Texas next season. Thoughts there?
That's good for Texas's program. They're going to have another extremely good recruiting class coming in. I think keeping him another year will do great things for the program as a whole. He's a dang good quarterback. And I think that's a good business decision on his part. This quarterback class is absurd. So maybe he just didn't see come the back half of the season how he's performed and his draft stock dwindling. So I think that's a grown man business decision, and I can get behind that.
Yeah, I can get behind it as well. I think the extra year of experience for him is really going to catapult him up into potentially the top 3 rounds. Even if it's early second, late second, somewhere in there, I think that's going to be very beneficial for him. There's 5 guys that are very likely going in the first round this year. Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, obviously, Drake May. Like, those 2 are probably going to be 1 and 2. Jaden Daniels might sneak into the back half of the first round. So I really do think Quinn Ewers needs to stay. What questions does that raise for Arch Manning?
Just get another year. I mean, he's coming out of a small school in New Orleans, so I think the more you can teach the kid, the better. He's going to have a good career. There's no reason to rush it. He's already getting paid millions by NIL. So I think he just takes this maybe with a grain of salt. Maybe they don't redshirt him, let him get some games on the back end and the blowouts, play an extra couple quarters here and there. But I mean, I think that's okay. Once he's done, hopefully you can take that full starting position come 2025.
And I say Arch Manning, but hell, Malik Murphy. Like, to me, if Quinn Ewers stays, there's no way they keep all 3 of those quarterbacks in house. And I do think for Quinn Ewers, it's the best decision to stay.
100%.
All right, one more piece of news here before we get into the games this week. UCLA is expected to fire Chip Kelly after the USC game. I don't know how true this is, but it's on lots of different sources. It seems to be the conclusion that everybody's come to. If UCLA goes with this move and gets rid of Chip Kelly, they would have to be the dumbest administration ever.
Yeah. I'm looking at their schedule. They won all the games they were supposed to. And the ones they lost, Utah by 7, Oregon State by 8, Arizona stomped on them a little bit. And I think it was just last week's loss against Arizona State that kind of did them in. But if you're looking at this, that's your only supposed to be. Like, you're supposed to win that game.
Yeah.
And then you have the stats on the quarterback injuries. That's just tough. You can't fire him just because he dropped the the close games and all the supposed to lose anyway, just because your quarterback situation is out the window, something you can't prepare for preseason.
Yeah, and you know, kind of like you alluded to, they've had 3 different quarterbacks this year. Like, they've won the games they're supposed to, but not even that, man. They're down to Dante Moore, who is a true freshman, and then who's the other guy? Schlee? Like, you know what I'm like?
Yeah.
Nobody knew who that was coming into this season. Like, casual fans definitely didn't. I wasn't expecting him to get any playing time. So I think whenever you look at the situation Chip Kelly's been handed this year, it's you know, it would be really unfortunate to see him get the boot. And on top of that, name me any name who is going to UCLA and doing a better job than Chip Kelly right now. Because, and keep in mind, that's not saying Chip Kelly's the best coach in the country or anything like that. That's clearly not what I'm saying. But the point is, to go to UCLA and do a better job than Chip Kelly, you'd have to be willing to leave your current situation. And UCLA is not like a gold-tier job.
No. No, especially with all the realignment and stuff. Like, you want to just throw your hat in there and just get ready to roll with the punches. Like, Chip Kelly's a great coach. It's not a good move.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think this would be a really bad move, and it feels like they're forgetting that Zach Charbonnet, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and Jake Bobo were all there last year, and they were, like, competing for the Pac-12, or they were competing for a spot in the Pac-12 championship late in the season. Just because that's not the case this year doesn't mean you've lost the program. I think it would be really, really unfortunate to see him go. Moving on. Moving on, getting into the games this week. First one we're going to talk about, Georgia at Tennessee. Georgia's a 10.5-point favorite here. You got anything on that one?
I just have some basic stuff. UGA with like 6 best total offense when you're looking at all their stats. Going against Tennessee's top 20 run offense. So I think there will be some points scored. However, I thought the game that they were to lose was going to be last week, and I still had them winning, but they blew it out the water. Playing in that stadium will be a little tougher, but I still don't see a world where they don't cover the 10.
Yeah, I hear you. Tennessee just got beat down by Missouri. Georgia just beat the ever-loving piss out of Ole Miss. So, you know, it's just 2 teams that are trending in different directions right now. I do think being in Knoxville, you know, being played in Knoxville helps. That stadium's probably worth more than 3 points, especially against Georgia. Problem is, it doesn't mean as much as it could have a week ago. You know, if Ole Miss beats Georgia, if, you know, Tennessee beats Missouri, then all of a sudden it's the premier game of the weekend, and neither of those things happen. Carson Beck hadn't really had a bad game. He hadn't thrown for less than 250 yards in any game this season, so he's been, you know, balling for the most part. I think if Tennessee's going to have any shot, they have to be able to get to the quarterback, and something they've been really good at this year. They're 7th in the country in sacks. Problem is, I don't know if that's going to be a key factor, because Ole Miss was also top 10 in that, and we saw what happened there. I think Tennessee has an opportunity to backdoor cover here, but I don't think they ever have the ball with a chance to take the lead in the 4th.
I agree.
Could be a close one. Could be a fun one to watch. But I'm taking Georgia, and if I had to pick, I'm going to take Georgia to cover. But even if it is close and fun, I don't think Tennessee ever has the ball with a chance to win. Before we move on to this next game, there's a question in the chat. It says, is Texas A&M a better coaching job than Oregon?
Whew.
What do you think? The question stems from, is Dan Lanning going to Texas A&M? I would imagine that's what he's getting at there.
Yeah. Yes. I think A&M, they've kind of solidified themselves as a SEC, not contender, but team. And I do like, you can recruit, you got the best recruiting pool in the country there. You have the entire Southeast and the entire state of Texas. I do think it is a better spot than Oregon. But I don't know. A lot of kids like to go play for Oregon. And if I had to pick between those 2 schools, I have no clue what I would go with, personally. So
I wouldn't leave one for the other. I think they're pretty even. I think you can give Texas A&M the upper hand in terms of recruiting and recruiting base in the Southeast. But Oregon's not short on money either, and they have the whole Nike deal going on over there. They're wearing different uniforms every week. The fans are really great. Alston Stadium is awesome. Yeah, I think those are both two really good jobs. I don't think I would leave one for the other.
Someone in the chat.
I'm with you.
Nike money versus oil money.
Yeah. But think about it though, for real. Like you just saw Mario Cristobal leave Oregon to go to Miami, and that looks like a disaster of a move. Why he would do that, I guess it felt like home, quote unquote. But leaving a program like an Oregon, or a Texas A&M, or a Georgia, or an Alabama, or a Michigan for that matter, like there's no up to that. Like, it doesn't get better than those programs, so I don't understand. I don't see anybody at one of those programs leaving to go to another one.
Yep, I like that take.
All right, moving on. Number 9, Missouri versus Florida. Missouri's 11.5-point favorite. If I had to go back to the Georgia-Tennessee game, I would probably widen that spread a little bit more, but 11.5 Missouri-Florida, I'm fairly okay with. Thoughts there?
Just Florida is historically bad on the road. Under Billy, they're 2-8. Now I know that doesn't talk to the spread, but that just shows like how much the swamp plays into their benefit. And so Missouri looked really good last week. They're just playing good football right now. There's no path for them right now, so it's kind of just win your games and make your bowl look a lot better. And I think they can handedly beat Florida this Saturday.
I think they definitely can handedly beat Florida. One thing they don't have to worry about at Florida doesn't have to worry about is Brady Cook's not going to run for 230 on them. And I don't think Schrader is either. Like he can find himself with a 100-yard rushing game, but he's not going to break off 150 on him. And I think that is a measure of safety for Florida there. I honestly wouldn't be insanely shocked to see them cover the 11.5. They're not ranked. They shouldn't be ranked, but let's not forget 3 weeks ago there was real names taking Florida to beat Georgia in the cocktail party. And there's reason for that. Like they do have talent. They do have I'm not going to say they have the coaching necessarily. We'll see over the next couple seasons if that can start trending in a different direction. But they do have talent, and Florida is a good program. Like Florida even is one of those jobs, I think, that we were just talking about. Like we saw it with Urban Meyer. We saw it with Steve Spurrier. Mm-hmm. That's one of those jobs, like the administration's bought in. They do have talent there. Their losses are Utah, Kentucky, Georgia, Arkansas, and LSU. 3 of those are top 25. They do have a win over Tennessee, who, again, is 19 right now. I'm not making this point to say that I think Florida can beat Missouri. I'm more so making the point to say that when Missouri beats Florida, we shouldn't write it off as a gimme win. Like I think Missouri's a good team who is going to go in and win this game. They may not cover, but when they beat Florida, we should recognize that as a solid win. That's the only reason I say those things about Florida.
Fully agree. You can't just write it off as it should be.
Right. All right, number 3, Michigan at Maryland. Michigan is minus 19.5. We actually have somebody in the chat. He said, how does the firing of Jimbo affect the price of oil? Before we get into this Michigan game, he was talking about Texas A&M. Clearly, he's kidding here. But with all the talks about Saudi Arabia getting involved in college football and NIL, we may see Jimbo over in the Middle East next year.
The best thing I saw about Jimbo today was the clip. I don't know if you saw it of Coach O's ad with Roback today.
Yes.
That is a tough watch, but then it got quote tweeted and it was like, "This is about to be Jimbo Fisher and Ed Ogeron at Floribama hitting on your wife," and I was like, "This is good stuff. This is the real poppy questions that we need to know post coach behavior."
I would love to see Jimbo Fisher and Coach Ogeron have a debate about gas prices. I think that would be ideal TV.
Yeah, that's like swamp people. Like you pick up every fifth word and you're just gonna make the sentence make sense.
Yeah. Somebody in the chat said, "Live college football. Jimbo is Phil Mickelson." I can see it. It wouldn't be.
He's one step, a gambling addiction away from just being spot on.
Yeah. All right. Michigan at Maryland. Michigan's a 19.5-point favorite. I think with Michigan's defense, we don't even have to stay on this one very long. I think this is pretty much spot on. Maryland is not going to be – look, Talia Tagovailoa, not a bad quarterback by any means, top half of the Big Ten in terms of quarterbacks. And they were ranked earlier in the year. So Maryland, I think, is actually a solid team. But they don't deserve to be on the same field as Michigan, especially at this point. So we'll see what happens. I think Michigan's defense is just far too good. We don't even really need to have much of this conversation here.
No, my only note is suffocating defense from Michigan. So it's just like, no, this should be – I don't know why it's not 26, 25, honestly. But they're gonna impose their will.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Okay, moving on to the Pac-12, we have 22 Utah at 17 Arizona. Utah is a 1.5-point favorite here. I don't love that. I'm not going to lock this, but I would feel really comfortable taking Arizona at plus 7.5. Like, if you want to grab that and throw it into a parlay, like, just to boost the odds a little bit, I think that is super safe. That's an alternate spread. But I'm going to take Arizona money line.
Yeah, I have the same thing, the exact same. I just really like this Arizona team and what they have going for them. Utah lost just a tough one last week, so at this point, I think preseason they were like, all right, if we get to here, at least we get a week off with Arizona. Yeah, not anymore. I mean, this is a real team who, if they keep building on next year, it's going to be a fun team to watch. So I like Arizona as well, straight up. And I love them more with the parlay odds that you're going to give out at the end.
Yeah, and I think obviously I know Arizona is ranked a little bit behind Utah. I want to say it's 19 and 16. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's 19 and 16 in the AP, but Utah is 22 in college football playoff rankings. Arizona is 17. So Arizona is actually ahead of them in the college football playoff rankings. I think they're not only are they ranked ahead of them, I think they're just a better team, period. Like, top to bottom, I think they're a better team. They don't have the same coaching tenure. The players may not have the same experience, but I think in terms of talent and what they've done so far this year, they've got a much better resume. Utah has won the games they're supposed to, but they've kind of lost all their ranked games. Is that
correct?
Right?
Yeah,
I believe that's true.
Let me check.
Let me check on that, because I may be thinking of UCLA. I know UCLA has lost all their ranked games. Yeah, so Utah lost to Oregon State.
They beat USC.
They beat USC. Okay, they beat USC, but that's That's because they forced a couple turnovers and got to the quarterback. But yes, they did beat USC. Other than USC, they lost to Oregon State. They lost to Oregon. They lost to Washington, and now here they are about to take on Arizona. I think Arizona's chances here are just as good as any of those teams were.
100%.
I would love to see a game that I would love to see right now is Arizona-Washington. I think that one would be fireworks.
I think it'd be an absolute shootout.
Yeah. Give me no Fafita in Arizona in that one, in a relatively close game, but I like Arizona money line. All right, UCLA at USC. USC is a 6.5-point favorite. I don't know how I feel about that one.
I think that's strictly because I don't know either. Thought I was going to say something, but I didn't even have this game written down. Is it at USC? I mean, it really doesn't matter. These California, it's not SEC where they don't go, and that's so aggravating, especially at these two programs. Like, you've been a staple to college football for its entire time. Like, the first game I remember watching verbatim was USC Texas for that Rose Bowl when it was like Vince Young and Reggie Bush, and they would pack out everything for the next 10 years, and now it's just like, I'll go if I can go. And so, yeah, that game's just ugly. Give me the over. I don't know what it is. Caleb Williams will probably have 5 total touchdowns, and they'll squeak out one. I don't know.
Yeah,
the rumors about your coaching are never good either. That's never good locker room vibes going into a big rivalry game anyway.
It's never good locker room vibes, but a lot of times what happens in those, and we've seen it in several SEC schools too, like when there's rumors of a coach being fired after the game, a lot of the times players get up for it. And they play to keep their coach. I don't know that, like, if the decision's made, the decision's made. And like with Zach Arnett or with Jimbo, right? He hung half 100 on Mississippi State and got kicked out the next day. So if the decision's already made, it won't make a difference. But I do think the players will get up for this one. going back like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was looking at this game, looking at it down the stretch, and I was thinking, I don't know how USC can be favored. Austin Jones has been a big part of the USC offense. Obviously, Caleb Williams has been great and all that kind of stuff. But Austin Jones has been a big part of that USC offense, and UCLA's got one of the best run defenses in the country right now. I think you shut that down and beg them to throw the ball on you. You're not going to have to beg much. They're going to throw the ball on you. But you can force one, two, somewhere in there turnovers. You got a real game. And UCLA's got a great running attack as well.
Yep.
Question is quarterback play. You got 3 different guys that you've been rotating in and out. Depending on what you get out of whoever you get at the quarterback position this weekend, I think is the determining factor. But I think if you can get consistent play out of either Ethan Garbers or Dante Moore, I'd take UCLA every day.
Mm-hmm. It's just a crapshoot. You just got to hope you're on the right side for this game, honestly.
Yeah. I would say those 6.5. Obviously, on a neutral field, it would be 3.5, which I'm not necessarily mad at in USC's favor. I would still take UCLA, but you'd have to lay those points with Caleb Williams, when you've had such inconsistent play from the quarterbacks at UCLA. But I think the rest of the teams as a whole, give me UCLA all day.
Fair.
You're going to love this one. Washington at Oregon State. Washington's undefeated, number 5 in the college football playoff rankings right now. Oregon State's a 2.5-point favorite at home.
Yep. You know where I lie. I said Oregon State versus Stanford last week. Give me Beavs minus 40, and I think they covered by like 39. I'm going to take the Beavs again this week, minus 2.5. This is playing with everything to lose versus nothing to lose. Washington, everybody's kind of counting them to lose to Oregon. So what about when they lose to Oregon State this week? This is a Penix Heisman game. He has to have it, in my eyes, to stay in the race. And not even has to have it, but have to play insane. And they're going to force him to do that. Oregon State has a great run defense. And then on the flip side, they have the second best red zone efficient offense in the country. So every time DJ sniffs the 20, you can almost guarantee it's going to be some points, which is a phenomenal feeling to have in your back pocket if you're a fan. So that is one of my 2 locks of the week is the Beavs minus 2.5. That stadium, they get up. They get up more than the LA and the California schools. And it's not like this is a huge game. But if the conference continued, this could be a rivalry, but it won't be. But Oregon State can win this one, win Oregon, and then we have a new conversation about going into the Pac-12 where they have to play somebody again. So I love Oregon State here. That's all I got on it.
Yeah, and, like we talked about on Sunday night, Oregon State is not out of the Pac-12 championship race here. They need wins the next 2 weekends, but they're literally favored in this one, and then they'd have to go to Oregon and find a way to win that. If they can get it done here, which I think they can, I'm also taking Oregon State money line. I think the difference is just the Washington defense versus the Oregon State offense. Washington's going to be able to put up points, but I love Oregon State's defensive matchup against Washington way better than Washington's defense against Oregon State's offense. They've been good on third down. They've been good at, forcing the impact play defensively, but I don't think they're going to be able to do that consistently through 4 quarters. And like you said, this is an easy lookover game for Washington. They just clinched. Oregon State has to win 2 more. And what we've seen in the Big 12, I know we're talking about Pac-12, but look at the Big 12. You have Oklahoma State, who, essentially for all intents and purposes sent Oklahoma packing out of the Big 12, and they're going to get that opportunity with Texas. You have that with Oregon State. Everybody's leaving the Pac-12. The president or the NCAA told the president of Oregon State that they have 2 years to add 8 more teams, and so it's kind of fun. What if Oregon State gets a chance to put on for the Pac-12 and say, y'all come to this conference, let's keep it alive? I don't think that'll happen. But I would love to see Oregon State win this game and find themselves in the Pac-12 championship.
Agreed.
Speaking of Oklahoma, they get BYU this week. They're a 24.5-point favorite, and they essentially have to handle business this week and hope that BYU can beat Oklahoma State next week if they're going to backdoor their way into the conference championship. I don't think this one's one that we really have to talk about too much. If Oklahoma gets it done, we'll really focus on the BYU-Oklahoma State game next week. But being a 24.5-point favorite, I think even if you have a bad game and win it by 7, you did what you needed to do.
Yeah, I just have Oklahoma with it's an elite offense. They had at one point a Heisman candidate quarterback. He's at that caliber. They know what they have to do, so I think they're just going to handle their business and just hope that everything shakes out next week.
Yeah. Yeah, in the chat, we got a question that said, can we talk about potential Pac-12 additions? Memphis comes to mind.
Oh, my God. All right, so I don't even have to look. JH, no. No, stop. Memphis is not worth it. Stop it. We're just going to shut that down. You can't be pulling from Memphis to go play at Oregon State. If we're talking about additions, I feel like we have to look at the Mountain West. Give me some Boise State, something like that. But no, Memphis is not making that trek. Their basketball program would be doing good in that conference, but I don't think their football team has a shot in the dark.
Well, you say in that conference like there's more than 2 teams in it moving to next year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
fair. So I mean, yeah, but I feel like if you're going to try and build that up, you have to recruit from the conferences near you, and you don't want to go cross country.
But another
especially what are they in the AAC?
Yeah,
Memphis. Okay, yeah. So
but
what were you going to say?
Though, another talking point here is that the Mountain West essentially wants to form an alliance with Oregon State and Washington State, knowing that is their base to pull from. So you might not see a Boise State and a Nevada go to the Pac-12 because all of a sudden they're aligned with Washington State and Oregon State, who now can't pull from the Mountain. And that's not all done and everything, but that would be a horrible business decision if your goal is to keep your conference. I don't know why they would do that.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it as well. I don't know. I'd have to look at a map, and I'd have to look at colleges, and I'd have to look at ones who would benefit from switching.
Well, there's nobody. There's really no. If you're just looking in that region, you're going to be talking about, like you said, Boise State, Nevada, San Jose State, San Diego State. Like, there's really not much. It wouldn't make. I don't think there's any. There's not many teams over there that have an argument that you can consider a Power 5 team outside of the name Pac-12. Like, like they wouldn't get asked to join any other Power 5 conference unless the conference was literally crumbling. So I think it could be great for them, if maybe Oregon State or Washington State finds themselves in a New Year's Six Bowl and wins it and those other teams get payouts for it. That would be great for them, like a benefit of being in the conference. But I don't know what teams over there would really bring anything to the table. Maybe Nevada. Yeah. Maybe kids want to go play in Nevada, be close to Vegas. I don't like that's the only thing I can think of. Like there's not many teams over there that would add to the conference.
I agree, and I feel like it would kill. They're in a tough spot. I feel like Oregon State and Washington State. You join that Mountain West, you'll be the cream of the crop, but you're also. I feel like you're going to kill the program in the long run. You just went from a premier conference to, and I'm not trying to shit on the Mountain West. I mean, it just is what it is. They were never a Power 5. It would just be detrimental to their programs, which would suck.
Yeah. Well, moving on, Oklahoma State gets Houston this week. They're only a 6.5-point favorite here. It's at Houston. Oklahoma State just got skull drugged by UCF last week, and they have no more room for error. If they lose another game, Oklahoma is very likely in the Big 12 championship. So Oklahoma State's got to get it together. Lean back on Ollie Gordon, run the hell out of the ball. He got to 1,000 yards, the fastest of any running back in the country this year. And the week he did it, he was leading by over 200 rushing yards. Put the ball in his hands and let him go. I don't know why they would try or do anything else at this point.
Yeah, I have Oklahoma State's just a better team. I went to the Houston TCU game, and the only points that kind of sparked was a kick 6 for Houston. Like the city gets up, and they do love the Cougs, which is good. But Oklahoma State, they're back against the wall. They don't want to get embarrassed again like they did last week, especially against the opponent that they did. They have to have this one. I think they will have it. I think this could be a 2-possession. This could be the 10 to 17 point win for them.
Yeah. Okay, we have a couple more games to talk about, but this one is the last top 25 game. Kansas State, number 21, Kansas State at 25, Kansas. Kansas State's an 8.5-point favorite here. A couple weeks ago, this one looked like it was going to be really important when they both came off wins against Oklahoma. Kansas came off their win against Oklahoma. How do you see this one going?
So I see that Daniels was questionable and Bean is probable. I think if either one of those two play, home field does matter in this rivalry, and it's at Kansas. I like Kansas plus the points. Both of those quarterbacks, if they have Daniels, give me money line. He's unreal. He's a really good quarterback, and Bean has done his job until he got, concussed last weekend. But I like Kansas. Home field matters in this game. So, yeah, give me the Jayhawks.
Yeah. I'm with you. If either of those guys play, I like Kansas's shot. But I think Will Howard's been a really good quarterback for Kansas State as well. They've got one of the best defenses in the Big 12. They've just been really consistent. They went right down to the wire with Texas. If they don't miss an extra point and a field goal late in that game, then they very likely win it. So I think this is one of those teams that Kansas State, when they're playing at their best, is a top 15 team in the country. Not in terms of rankings, but in terms of ability and who they can beat. I think they're right there in the mix with not elite teams, but with some really good teams. I think they can go, and I would be surprised, or I think we would all be surprised by what a spread of Kansas State versus Louisville, a one-loss Louisville, or a Kansas State versus even a Oklahoma would be. I think it'd be a lot closer than most people expected. I'm going to go Kansas State to win this one, but I do think Kansas covers if either of those quarterbacks play.
I like it.
Texas at Iowa State. Texas is a 7.5-point favorite. I only threw this game in here to talk about because it's a single-digit spread. I would expect Texas to win this game kind of in, blowout fashion. But Iowa State, all of a sudden, like you look at several different people's power ratings around the country, Iowa State's right there in the top 30. I don't necessarily know why. They haven't really won any big games this year. And Texas, their only loss right now is Oklahoma. So give me Texas in the big one. We don't have to have a huge conversation about it. I just thought it was interesting that we had a single-digit spread here. Do you have anything on this?
I just had it's everything to lose, nothing to lose again, just like the Oregon State, Washington. Iowa State, I think, is playing for bowl eligibility, while Texas is playing for playoff eligibility. And as a Alabama ex-student alumnus fan, I'm taking Iowa State plus 7.5. I'm not a financial advisor. That is strictly out of heart. But they did beat Oklahoma State in 2011 to set up Bama making the playoff, or not even the playoff, the BCS. So Iowa State's good for the Alabama program as a whole. Has been. Will be. Love it. Go Cyclones.
I'm going to start keeping a record because that's the second show in a row you've brought that up. And I feel like it's just to spite me, but it's okay.
Well, hopefully I can do it again on Sunday. If it doesn't happen, you won't hear a peep about it.
Fair enough. All right. ACC, number 10, Louisville at Miami. Louisville's a 1.5-point favorite here. This one's really tight. I think if you look at the blue chip ratio, in terms of 4 and 5 stars that are on Miami's roster top to bottom compared to Louisville, Miami's got way more talent on their team. And I think that's exactly where this lies. It's in Miami, but Louisville's a one-loss team trying to make it to the ACC championship. I think they can afford to lose this one, but all the conversations about Louisville finding their way backdoor and into the playoffs definitely disappear if they lose this game.
100%. And Miami has had a couple, I'm looking at their schedule. I mean, they were ranked at one point. They have the win over Clemson. They have a nail-biter versus Virginia. The Georgia Tech one will haunt everybody that's associated with the U until the day they die.
Yeah, they had that game once.
Yeah, that is a legitimate coaching error. If you want to put it on the kids, you don't know ball. Okay, that's the coach. So they should have one or two more wins sprinkled in their schedule, which is why I think they're the favorite. But Louisville has to handle business if they want to sniff the playoff and get a look at Florida State. So I just think the have-to-have-it mentality is going to allow them to go out there and play good. It being one, it's a pick-em, which makes it even more scary. I'm staying off that game, but I do like Louisville.
Yeah, the NC State loss didn't help either. They probably had one or two on there that could go the other way. Is Jack Plummer the guy, man? Is he going to be able to go get this win and send them to the ACC championship? You think so?
I hope. I think so. I think they're a good ball club. I don't have too many notes on Louisville. I haven't watched them as much as I should have this year. But I think they can be outplayed and outcoached. So Miami being the recipient of that.
Yeah. I don't know where I fall here. I think this is actually going to be a really good game. Considering how Louisville beat Notre Dame, that was a beatdown. They beat Duke. They've beaten a couple really good teams this year. I don't know if we see that against Miami. Going on the road to Miami against a team that just has way more talent than you, like Louisville and Duke, right? Duke they were perceived as a better team at the time, but the talent disparity wasn't nearly as bad as this one with Miami. Now Notre Dame was. We'll see how it plays out. I think I'm gonna take Miami money line in this one.
Cool. I mean, that's what the beauty of the show. So we're on the opposite sides of two, which is what it'll be fun to talk about on Sunday about like what we've seen and what we saw. So I respect it. I have no feel. I just think that Louisville, they control their destiny, and you got to play like you can control it. And I think they can. I think that quarterback can. So that's the only reason why I'm on that side.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is the last game we'll talk about. 20 North Carolina at Clemson. Clemson's a 6.5-point favorite here. And I actually love that. I didn't expect Clemson to be favored going into this one. I don't know why. I mean, Vegas clearly knows best, but
Always.
I was surprised that I was right about this because I definitely would have had Clemson favored. And so whenever I saw that, I saw the affirmation from Vegas, I was like, oh, okay, maybe I was right about Clemson. But they're just, frankly, top to bottom, they are a better football team. They're better coached. They have better talent on the team all the way through. They're playing at home. They're not really playing for anything. They have 4 or 5 losses on the year now. So really, a year to forget for Clemson. But they've got a solid defense. The question to me is, can Cade and Dabo get on the same page? Because they haven't been this year. They've lost games because of it. Because Dabo said, even the one 2 or 3 weeks ago, where Dabo said that the call at the line at the end of the game, last play of the game, the call at the line was a run. Cade switched it up. All of a sudden, they're button heads. So I don't know. Can they get on the same page? Because if they can, Clemson is a much better team than North Carolina, and I like them to win.
Mm-hmm. I feel like this could be a big recruit game. I'd probably, if I was Clemson, I'd pack it out and with all your recruits and see this is like, we had a bad year. We want y'all to come. We're going to turn this around. However, I just look at the Duke games. I know the Duke versus Clemson was at home, and that's why I won. But UNC beat Duke in double overtime last week. So if you're looking at the matchups, I like UNC. They have the 3rd most total yards of any offense in the country. So they will get up and down the field. That will happen. And they're the 3rd best third down. Somebody else think Oregon State was the 2nd. So I like third down percentages. When you can get to third down, 3rd and 4, and you're like, okay, I have at least 8 plays I can call. I think that's a really, really good kind of note of a good offense that will succeed and a good team overall. So I love UNC plus the 6.5.
Okay. I look back at that Clemson-Duke game, and, Clemson had 3 chances to score. And that was also the first game of the year. So I don't know if that tells the story of what Clemson has turned into. It definitely doesn't hurt the fact that they're lost 4 more games since then. But looking at that game, Clemson had 3 chances to score in the red zone, and Duke forced a turnover. I think the turnover played the biggest role in that game in Duke's favor, and I don't think North Carolina is going to be as successful in getting that. Will they be able to score more than Duke did? Probably. Yes, I'm very much expecting them to. The question is Clemson's offense versus North Carolina's defense, and I like Clemson there.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. I like if the QB and head coach, if they can get back to seeing eye to eye, it's a scary team no matter what happened earlier in the season. So it's going to be another good game. It's a good ACC matchup, just like Miami and Louisville. So ACC got a couple good shake-up games this weekend.
Okay, really quickly, I'm going to run through the locks this week. I have 19 Notre Dame minus 14.5 versus Wake Forest. That's minus 390 odds. 6 Oregon minus 12.5 at Arizona State minus 390. And then Georgia minus 3.5 at Tennessee minus 310. So feel great about that. That parlay gets you to plus 108. It's even money. You know, if you want to tail it, throw whatever you want on there. I'm not going to throw out a number, but I'll probably be betting fun money on this. Because I do think this is kind of a chippy. All right, so we're down to 5 undefeated teams. We have Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, and Washington. And then 4 one-loss teams, Texas, Louisville, Oregon, Bama. So there's 9 teams that are left in the conversation for the playoff. If you had to give one right now, who is it?
Sorry, one more time. I was looking at my notes.
No, it's all good. So there's 5 undefeated teams left: Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, Washington. 4 one-loss teams: it's Texas, Louisville, Oregon, Bama. Of those 9 teams, if you had to give a playoff right now, who is it? I don't need them in order. I don't need 1 through 4. Just who are the 4?
Okay, so I'm also thinking about what's going to happen next week in this scenario, if that's cool, in all the big rivalry games. Michigan, Georgia, Bama, Florida State.
Okay.
Yeah. How that's messed up, huh?
So I don't think there's any way two teams from any one conference get in.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean you think Oregon State wins the Pac-12? Because Washington. Yes. Wow. Okay. So Oregon State winning the Pac-12. I'm not sold on Florida State finishing the year undefeated. They only have 3 games left before a potential playoff, but I think they drop one of them. Whether it's whether it's this week, whether it is against Florida, they're not losing this week. But whether it's Florida
not
State,
this week.
No, yeah, but whether it's Florida next week or Louisville the following, I think Florida is a team that honestly is not great. They're not top half of the country. Well, they are top half of the country, but they're 9. I think they're ranked 9 out of 14 in the SEC, but would be mid-tier teams in almost any other conference. So that's a team that's sneaky in a rivalry game in Gainesville. Could be one that Florida State already clinched the ACC. Like they could look over that game. I mean, Florida State was much better than Florida last year and won it by 6 at home, and Florida had the ball with a chance to win with less than a minute to go. So I think that's just a game that plays different. On top of that, yeah, I just don't see a way that both Georgia and Bama get in. I think the winner of the SEC championship gets in.
Yeah, with me saying that, there'd have to be some crazy stuff. Oregon State would have to win the Pac-12. Texas would have to lose the Big 12. And I can or they would have to pick up a loss before then. Mm-hmm. And I could just see it. And then if Bama wins the SEC, it's known the committee loves the SEC. I mean, it is what it is. It's the best conference. It has been. It will be. That means Georgia will have lost, 1 game in 3 years?
Yeah.
So it's just hard to keep out a dynasty like that and what it's becoming. And then if you get the shake-up wins and you're looking at all these teams with 1 loss, you got, Oregon, or not even Oregon, I have them losing. So Texas, yeah. So you're looking at, Washington State with 1 loss or something like that. You're looking at Oregon with 2 losses. You're looking at Louisville with 1 if they went out. Florida State. It's just, I don't know. There would have to be crazy stuff, but I look at these 9 teams and I gave you the best 4 with a couple shakeups.
Yeah. I don't know if Florida State is in that best 4, but I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, that's the only one we really don't see fully eye to eye on, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
And so it's just, yeah, it'll be, I don't know. The more I read, the more the hypotheticals get fun and the more we don't know what's going to happen. But if you had to give me 4, where are you standing right now?
Yeah, if I had to give you 4, I'd go Georgia, Michigan. I'd go Georgia, Michigan, Oregon, and one of Texas or Florida State.
Okay.
I think Georgia wins the SEC championship game. I think it is a toss-up, but I'm going to lean Georgia. I think there's a better shot that Ohio State and Michigan get in as opposed to Georgia and Alabama. And I don't think any conference gets 2 teams this year, though, just because there's 9 teams with 1 loss or less.
Yeah. That's fair. I mean, we're going to talk about it tonight. We're going to talk about it Wednesday, and we're Sunday and Wednesday. Not this Saturday, but next Saturday will be madness. And I can't wait for it because then the writing comes on the wall. Then this team has to beat this team in the conference championship if they want a say, or it's signed, sealed, delivered. So this is, like I said, this is where it gets fun. We get to talk about it for 3 more shows, and then it happens.
Yeah.
And I think we can each throw out 2 hypotheticals, and we can go 0 for 4.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what?
It's college football. It's the best sport in the world.
Can't agree more with that. I think for Alabama, their best bet is to win out. Obviously, you got to win out. Got to beat Georgia in the SEC championship. But you need Texas to win the Big 12, and you need the committee to lean Alabama over Texas, because I don't see how. I don't know. It gets really interesting if Texas doesn't win the Big 12, because then that loss doesn't look quite as good, especially if it comes against an Oklahoma State who has a couple losses.
It's just at that point you're looking past that and you're like, okay, beginning of the season, QB isn't who he is now. They just beat Georgia.
Yeah,
hopefully,
100%. I would say,
and then you're like, okay, that defeats the Texas argument, but everybody will always bring that back.
Yeah.
So appease the masses with the playoff. Like, that's the only good thing that the 12 team will do. Like we talked about last show, we both think it's wrong. The only thing it will do is 1 through 10, everybody will be fine with. Now people will get mad at 11 or 12. Do you let the 2-loss, I don't know, like LSU, or the 2-loss Penn State, do they trickle in instead of the Tulane undefeated AAC champs or something like that? 1 loss, or JMU, who's going to win 35 games in a row before they can make a dang bowl. But that's where it'll stop being so scrutinized under a magnifying glass. But I think this is the best year ever to do it.
Yeah.
Because nobody is step away. Everybody, you can look at Vegas odds, there's 4 teams less than plus 1,000. They have no clue what's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm with you. Well, we'll see what happens, and we'll be back Sunday to recap the games. If you're going to any games this weekend, go to SeatGeek, use code 10-second runoff. That is 10 SECONDRUNOFF. Save $20 on your first purchase, and we will see y'all Sunday.